Pardon me. First, I'd like to address the inquiries I've had about my choice of libation. This is my typically perfectly chilled, arid Hendrick's Martini, garnished with 3 pitted Spanish olives. Arid meaning I take Sir Winston Churchill's recipe even further. This martini hasn't even seen a vermouth bottle, let alone become polluted with any. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Less than 2 weeks ago now, the high-performance audio world was saddened to learn of the passing of an industry luminary, founder of von Schweikert Research and von Schweikert Audio, visionary loudspeaker designer, and my friend, Albert von Schweikert. I received an amazing amount of feedback on the written remembrance that I wrote for him. Almost everyone who wrote or called indicated that they'd had no idea of the extensive degree of his achievements, contributions, and accomplishments, and for helping them to understand just what a legendary force he was in our industry in general, and to the advancement of loudspeaker design specifically. The semi-coincident arrival of my flagship series von Schweikert Audio ULTRA 9 loudspeakers this past week, those beauties in deep red you see in place of my long-term reference VR-55 Aktives behind me, was especially heartrending. In 1997, after having been in the acoustat electrostatic loudspeaker camp for nearly a decade, the convincingly similar mid-range warmth, transparency, and resolution, and the considerably more authentic bass speed, accuracy of pitch, punch, and impact that I heard from the second generation VR4 completely won me over. It was markedly unlike any other hi-fi speaker of its day, and sounded so much more like live music. Interestingly, since that time, I've owned 8 different models of von Schweikert Research or von Schweikert Audio loudspeakers, culminating with the ULTRA 9s you see behind me. Now, just weeks ago in episode 3, I took you on a tour of my system. It featured the last exclusively Albert von Schweikert speaker design from VSA, the VR-55 Aktives. In 2012, Albert and von Schweikert Audio were set to the task of developing a one-of-a-kind, cost-no-object loudspeaker for a long-time customer. For the better part of 3 years, save for normal production, this was the company's consuming project. Albert focused on the specifics of the drivers and dividing network, and his son Damon spent a year just designing the enclosures. The resulting $750,000 statement VR111XS, a concentric array line source hybrid, was finished in 2015 and served to be Albert's swan song. Once that statement product was completed and delivered, Albert retired. At that time, in the fall of 2015, Damon took over as VSA's CEO, and Leif Swanson, after more than a decade as Albert's handpicked and trained successor, assumed the mantle of VSA's head designer. As significant and influential as Albert's work was, I must tell you, what Damon and Leif have done in the ensuing 5 years since taking the helm of VSA is, well, it's even more remarkable. Often, standing on the shoulders of giants like Albert von Schweikert can give one an even clearer view of your goals than even the giant himself could envision. And the new Ultra products, all inspired by the overwhelming performance benchmarks realized by the one-off heroic VR111XS design, are a clear example of such accomplishments. The Ultra products clearly represent one of the most significant accomplishments in loudspeaker design to this point in time. The ULTRA 9s are essentially the lower half of the ULTRA 11, the first of the VSA Ultra products, which was introduced in 2017. And every area of performance of this speaker is at the cutting edge of what can be accomplished today. It is a 6-way, 8-driver, sealed enclosure dynamic loudspeaker. The lower 2/3 of the front baffle is swept back at 7 degrees and holds 2 modified Accuton 8-inch honeycomb ceramic drivers that cover the 50 to 250 Hz region, and a unique Accuton 7-inch ceramic mid-range driver that uses what they call direct dome drive design concept, or 4Ds for short, that reproduces the 250 to 2200 Hz range. The top third of the front baffle is perpendicular to the floor rather than being swept back, and it houses both a modified ScanSpeak 1-inch beryllium dome diaphragm tweeter that covers from 2200 to 20,000 Hz, as well as a bespoke 5-inch hybrid aluminum ribbon super tweeter whose bandwidth begins at 20,000 Hz and extends up past 60,000 Hz. Moving to the top of the rear baffle, we find a feature unique to von Schweikert Audio, the ambience retrieval driver array, which features an identical 5-inch aluminum leaf super tweeter as the one found on the front baffle, and a 1-inch Ciaz aluminum magnesium alloy dome tweeter immediately below it. Moving to the very bottom of the much wider back baffle, we find another remarkable driver, a one-piece Nomex honeycomb 15-inch subwoofer, which recreates everything from 50 hertz down. That leaves the two drivers in the front open to not have to play anything below 50 hertz. Between the drivers, we find the large silver aluminum plate housing a custom-built 1,000 watt mono amplifier to power the 50-inch sub, a full room integration suite of controls, and all cabling connections. With a sensitivity of 92 decibels and a nominal impedance of 4 ohms, it has a frequency response of 16 hertz to 60,000 hertz. That room integration suite occupies a little more than the upper 1/3 of that rear panel. The top 2 rows of controls feature 3 large Fostech 100 watt transformer type attenuators to manage the room interactions of the tweeters, the super tweeters, and the rear ambience array. The lower row of potentiometers is used to integrate the subwoofer to your room, allowing for variable phase control from 0 to 180 degrees, controlling its flex point and controlling its gain. VSA's proprietary crossover technology can be described by terms AIR, AIR, which stands for Acoustic Inverse Replication, and GAIN, GAIN, or the Global Access Integration Network. This unique and intricate dividing network circuitry, combined with the ambience retrieval driver array, are huge factors in what elevates and separates von Schweikert audio speakers from their would-be competition and should be seen as their signature defining advantage. I'll provide a link under the video so you can learn more about this remarkable and unique process. The enclosure's multifaceted sides and angled front baffle offer no right angles or any wider than necessary baffles to interpose any dispersion or diffraction issues. The entire enclosure is some 4 inches thick, featuring VSA's triple wall laminate composite enclosure technology, and all internal wiring is master-built Ultra Series cables. Each Ultra 9 stands 50 inches tall, is 12 inches wide at the base of the front baffle, flaring to just over 32 inches wide at the base of the rear baffle, and they weigh in at about 600 pounds each. Is that enough technology and engineering for you? While this is clearly a heroic level of design, it was their sound that won me over in short order when I first heard them at the Rocky Mountain Audio Fest in Denver in 2018. You should know this. If bass performance isn't tonally truthful, accurately extended, and distinctly pitch defined, the rest of the speaker's performance will suffer, from its overall fidelity of tone, color, and balance to the representation of the acoustic of the recordings you played. The Ultra 9's ability for seamless room integration performance is completely unsurpassed by any other single speaker available, save for the Ultra 11, regardless of price. As such, once the configurable time alignment, phase consistency, and di or bipolar pattern settings are attuned to support your room's native abilities, the Ultra 9 offers unparalleled bass performance. Its clarity of definition and pitch, its sense of unconstrained transient speed, the overall smoothness and the dynamic heft and undeniable enhancement of the demarcation of the acoustic environment of the recording venue simply cannot be overlooked. What they have accomplished here simply represents the most articulate, most defined, and most potent performance under 50 hertz available today. I mean it. When rendering the unreserved power of musical drama, like that served up by Jeff Porcaro's churning drum storm near the climax of It's a Miracle from Roger Waters' masterpiece, Amused to Death, the Ultra 9's pitch definition, body, timbral faithfulness, and unyielding yet utterly articulate weight, impact, attack, and transient fidelity are simply unsurpassed in my experience. Performance on up through the mid-range is every bit as convincing in terms of transient reproduction, tone, color, fundamental and harmonic structure and texture, creating a brilliantly meticulous portrayal of both weight and impact. The Ultra 9 conveys a general sense of natural flow and organicness while rendering musical nuance and instrumental detail. Their uncanny ability to offer a more detailed view into the music while at the same time reproducing more harmonic complexity and musical richness, portraying both more resolve and more body at once, represents a fundamentally musical step forward, not just a clearly apparent sonic difference here. One of their most significant attributes is their unmatched capability to denote differences in timbre. Okay? They portray tone color, instrumental timbre, with both a degree of accuracy and a finer gradation between hues than I have heard from any other existing transducer system. Okay? This enclosure, driver complement, most notably that modified Ikuton 4D midrange, and the dividing network are so diminishingly free of distortion, so resolute and transparent, that the Ultra 9 conspicuously reveals unprecedented nuance and demarcation of tonal shading. Probably the easiest way I can try to explain this to you is that the result to the ear is much like one sees when magnifying the projected spectrum of white light filtering through a prism. When afforded that magnified view, or in this example, hearing the voice of the Ultra 9, the subtler shades and hues blending into and between the 7 primary colors you see with only the naked eye are plainly exposed. And guess what? The uppermost frequencies are treated in as equally unconstrained and natural a manner as the bass and the midrange. They are rendered as seemingly limitless, allowing them to develop that sense of graceful effortlessness, of unfettered extension, replete with the perception of the air of and around instrumental voices that allows them to regenerate that final compelling measure of attack, decay, or trailing ambience. It's fabulous. For a 6-way, 8-driver loudspeaker communicating with the blended voice of 16 drivers, the resultant degree of coherence of so convincingly speaking with one continuous voice is as faultless as I've yet experienced. As much subtlety and fluidity as they expose in the microdynamic realm, their explosive forcefulness is simply stunning, constructing both weight and impact with a deftness, definition, clarity, and a focus unlike any other speaker in memory, save for its larger sibling, the Ultra 11. Their ability to render stark transparency to the sources, to reveal the subtlest nuance and detail of scale, is disarming. Their exceptional facility to resolve low-level spatial cues and their markedly coherent voice, when combined with the remarkable performance from this distinct crossover and rear-firing ambient retrieval system, allows them to present a degree of soundstage layering, of image specificity, size, and shape that is second to none. I mean that. Instrumental locations are dimensionally solid and stable, with clear illumination deep into the rear corners where so many speakers often lose their staging lucidity. Image sizes are convincingly realistic, neither bloated nor diminished, and the reality with which they present the spatial presentation, including hall dimensionality, instrumental placement, and subsequent interrelationships, especially vertical height, as well as reverberant cues, sets a new benchmark. With cue sound recordings, like Sting's 1991 The Soul Cages, in the very last seconds of When the Angels Fall, the sudden appearance of Sting just off your left shoulder, saying good night, is flesh and bone real. Adding this all up, the remarkably inert and voiceless enclosure, the fabulously coherent and resolute drivers, its distinct, serene, and transparent dividing network, the use of devices and components delivering the least interactive, non-imposing electronic signature, its extraordinary and unique ambience speaker array with its unparalleled room integration capabilities, and we can begin to understand how the Ultra 9 can deliver this exceptional level of musical expressiveness with such heightened transparency and vanishingly low self-generated noise. While I've traveled this particular road for approaching 5 decades and have had the pleasure and honor of reporting on it since the late 1980s, I have found the Ultra 9 loudspeaker from von Schweikert Audio to embody a new pinnacle of achievement in recreating the reality of the recorded event. To sum up, the von Schweikert Audio Ultra 9 is the most authentically musical loudspeaker I have yet encountered. Simply put, it more effortlessly and emotionally persuades listeners that they are hearing music, not recordings, than any other system I have encountered to date. The trailblazing work that von Schweikert Audio is doing under the direction of lead designer Leif Swanson and CEO Damon von Schweikert all built upon the groundbreaking work of company founder Albert von Schweikert, starting back in the 1970s. Epitomizes what can be done to recreate an authentic musical experience in the home. A product like this elevates listening to music to the level of a live event, capable of transcending the sense of playback to emulate the live experience. Now, I've added a link in the episode description to my full written review of the Ultra 9s that appeared in the Absolute Sound, issue 298 in October of 2019, where you can find much more detail about the remarkable VR111XS project and the world-class Ultra 9s. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you are enjoying our conversations. And thanks again for dropping by. Please stay safe and keep the music playing. Till next time, to you.